Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the MedTech Jam Session with Chris and Mike D. I'm here with my good friend and world traveler, Chris Lyons. And this is a special episode of the MedTech Jam Session because Chris, bless his heart, has taken the bullet for the team to fly all the way down to the JW Marriott at Cabo to go to the State of Spine Surgery think tank. So today we're live worldwide. We're a global podcast, Chris Lyons. What do you think about that?
I love it, man. There's a lot to be talked about. But yeah, the weather's been amazing. It's definitely better than it is in Memphis right now in the heat box. Lots of wind, lots of breeze, and low 80s. So it's been very much amazing timing relative to the heat box that's over the southeast.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. I'm experiencing that right now. So let's talk a little bit about this meeting, because this is a unique meeting, the State of Spine Surgery think tank, because you start with the Investment and Innovation Summit, where you get to hear from some startups, you hear from some investment bankers and venture capitalists and the strategics, the leadership teams from the various strategics, and they are all sort of gathered together at this pre-meeting to talk about what's going on in the world of spine specifically. But I suspect there's probably some information that you can glean from that's going on in the orthopedic and med tech market generally. So Chris, why don't you speak to that first and let's kick this thing off.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Happy to. It's been a great meeting. I was excited about coming here this year. It's the third or fourth time I've been here. This is the 20th anniversary of the Spine Think Tank Summit. It was probably about 3 or 4 years ago that they added the Investor Day and started to invite the smaller organizations to come and present. It's a little bit like MNVC in that regard by adding that day. And even on the Investor Day, there's a lot of surgeons that attend because they know where the innovation and disruption is happening.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. And so they're not only looking at things from a technological standpoint, but even an investment standpoint themselves. We had a dynamic presentation from Charles Hamilton with Piper, and speaking to the overall musculoskeletal market, especially. And the nice thing about what Charles shared from the top is that the economy is definitely on the rise. Things are definitely looking up. But on top of that, the GDP is improving. And what that signal means to the investors out there in a big way is that there's about $1 trillion, and that's not just musculoskeletal, that's many different areas, sectors, but there's $1 trillion of investment opportunity sitting on the sidelines and has been. And the expectation is that these investors, they have to start making moves. It's like you're at the 11th hour. And not only that, but the fact that it will encourage even faster growth in the GDP by making those moves.
Right.
So I think that was a very strong and positive and convincing statement. I don't think anybody in the room would negate that. So what that means in our space, especially for musculoskeletal, is that the first half of 2025, as we've seen it, has felt a little bit slow in terms of funding, but the work has to go in. And I hope those that are listening, whether you're fundraising for your own business or whether you're a fundraiser for businesses that you represent, like we are, that you put the work in the last 5 to 6 months, because if you have, the backside of this year is going to prove very fruitful. There's no doubt about it. Every indication is showing it. And so I'm even more bullish coming out of this meeting about these companies getting funded so that they can be bringing the best products to the patients and to the surgeons. The thing I would state along with that is that the expectation is 2026 through 2028 should be a massive upswing in M&A activity across musculoskeletal and not just spine. So the exciting thing to me is that with the space that I serve, the things that I do, is that whether it's sports med, spine, or orthopedics, is that a lot of positivity is coming back into the conversation. I would say one other thing that would probably be good to understand is that a lot of startups, as they're trying to get the funding they need so they can continue their clinical trials or start their clinical trials, is that they need to get creative in ways to get the money in faster. Sometimes
Right.
that can be debt financing. Sometimes that can be special vehicles, but it needs to be a consideration, especially for those that are 3 months behind where they wanted to be, 6 months behind where they wanted to be. And so I think that's something that needs to be stressed.
But we're still probably in the mode of investors are probably looking for profitable growth, not growth at all costs. Is that fair to say?
At the VC level, that's 100% true. That's still the case.
Yeah.
The other levels, whether it's high net worth individuals, whether it's angels and family offices, they are more willing to take the risk to come into these companies at a seed, even Series A.
Mm.
So that's an encouraging element. It's continuing to be that you still have to put the work in.
Right.
And if you started this month, you probably will have folks that will be getting your companies funded. If you started in July 1, that you probably will have those companies getting funded in a real manner, money in the bank in Q1 of 2026. I'm not saying that the speed to money is improving. I'm saying the engagement for money has been improved.
Well, and that will loosen up even more if, as you say, we see some liquidity events for investors who have put in capital in the last 5 years and are also sitting on the sidelines because they want to see some liquidity. So I think that's a fair assessment. Are you a medtech company prepping for a big product launch and are struggling to get the attention of your sales team so that they can hit the ground running? Or are you a medical device sales professional who is frustrated because you have to go to one platform for sales training, another platform to access selling tools, and then go to your email to check for important company updates? Well, here at Convey Med, we've built a better way. Welcome to Convey Connect. Your bespoke company-branded mobile app will become the single source of truth for your sales reps, resulting in a better trained, connected, and engaged team who will crush quotas. Organize your training content to accelerate Salesforce readiness. Customize your sales library so your reps can easily find and use the selling tools that move prospects to customers. Build culture and camaraderie with your own internal social media feed right inside the app. Built on a secure platform and customized for your needs, we can get your mobile app deployed to the app stores in a matter of weeks. Please visit conveymed.io to learn more and schedule a demo. Let me ask you this, Chris. What are the investors looking for? So you've had a chance to see and exposed to a lot of early stage, maybe near commercial or early commercial stage spine companies at this meeting. What are the investors looking for to finance these companies, and what are the strategics looking for to either strategically finance or acquire?
That's a great question. And they had a panel on strategic investment. And, it's funny. When I think back to my tenure at Medtronic Business Development for Spine, 2009, 10, and 11 were banner years for strategic investment into companies. A lot of that is shifted and has changed in terms of alignment. And if there's any investment going in, it's becoming more of a partnership of investment. It's not just we're going to put money into your business and ask for a minority board seat position, okay,
Right.
with no voting rights. It's more of we're going to get our hands more so involved in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis at a strategic level to help you get where you need to go. And so that's definitely been a shift. And that's a good and a bad. It depends on how you're going to look at it. If
Right.
you're a company that's out there and you've got a really solid business operation already, you may not need that, although you want the cash. But if you're not that and really looking for the influence of it, then maybe it's a position that you do need to take. The only caveat there is that you're set in the marketplace in a lot of ways is having your partner, which potentially means excluding others of strategic interest down the road when you get closer to acquisition. There's not a lot of big strategics out there that are putting money into businesses to make money off their investment alone.
Right.
That's not the game.
That's not the business they're in.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's a business of
Yeah.
growth, but it's a business of growth through acquisition. And
Right.
so I would say that whole panel, you could tell it's like, well, if you really need to come to us, maybe we can forge a relationship. But if you're looking for investment, it shouldn't be your first stop along the way. So coming on the heels of that discussion about strategic investment, the idea that they still have is they want businesses still to be as de-risked as possible. And that's not 100% the truth. There can be outliers to that. There's really disruption that's coming into play
Right.
from a startup technology. And they could make faster moves in that regard, but that's 1 in 10. I think that their motive is that they've got to see the acceptance across a broad surgeon base and or surgical site base. And the fact that acceptance turns into looking like $5 to $10 million in annual revenue, or at least a trend toward that, for them to take your business seriously in regard to acceptance. Then they're going to want to engage. And that was very clear even still in this meeting. It's funny to
Right.
me, being in the M&A world now for 18 years, literally half of that, almost half of that on the buy side and the half now on the sell side. And the mantras don't change or haven't changed. There's a lot of pressure on the healthcare industry. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why they haven't changed. If
Yeah.
it was like it was, Mike, for you and me
Right.
back in the day of early 1990s all the way up through 2005, this conversation would be a totally different story.
Right.
But that's
That-
not the norm right now. It could be the norm again. And I will say that because there is a lot of activity that's happening at the surgeon level. That's happening, heck, at the governmental level now. I just saw RFK come out and say, from a health standpoint, that they are doing a lot to force what they can relative to this massive delay because of prior authorization and
Mhm.
streamline that to get better success for the patients sooner.
Yeah.
And that in itself would be a massive win because you're taking so much pressure off of these surgeons and their administrative teams to have to constantly be hitting the insurance companies for one
Yeah.
single patient to get them the treatment that they need. But it'll also start creating revenue generation faster. There's a delay.
That's
you
right. Yeah.
said.
It's a
Yeah.
revenue unlock.
So that is something that's been talked about at this meeting. And I think part of it is because that statement from RFK hit the wires earlier this week at the very beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
So if I continue to speak to the startups and their focus, it's definitely, I always say this, because I say this to all my clients, is you have got to make your business priority one, and the growth of your business and the operations of your business and the scale of your business priority one. Don't get distracted by those that are around you that may even be quote unquote incoming interest. And you all of a sudden get enthused by that. You still have to keep the main thing, because 9 times out of 10, that incoming interest, especially if you're pre-commercial, is just an element of discovery on the part of a potential future buyer.
Yeah. They're just kicking the tires, right? They're just
Yeah.
kicking the tire.
That's
And
it.
there's a place for that, but there's probably a way to efficiently have that available for strategic so they can keep up with what you're doing, but not allow you as an operator to continue to focus. So I'm interested to hear about your thoughts and if there was any discussion around what we see in the marketplace. There's been a lot of chatter, or let's say on LinkedIn, since Stryker has exited the spine business, Zimmer Biomet has exited spine. These are two of the huge strategics who have chosen to exit the spine business. And we hear rumors about some of the other big companies maybe making a move as well. Then does that, and is that causing some concern for investors to invest in small spine startups, because there are fewer strategics now that will be interested in acquiring them? Is the spine market dead?
Far from it. It's evolving for the first time in many years, and it's time. I've been in the spine industry, not just ortho, the spine industry now effectively for 20 years.
Mhm.
And it was the heyday back in 2005, and things were exploding and businesses were growing and things of this nature.
Yeah.
Well, to give insight to this, let's talk about those companies letting go of those businesses, but yet those businesses didn't go to the trash heap. They just
Mhm.
got reallocated. And so it's shifting what your top five in spine looks like. And
Mhm.
the dollar value doesn't go down. It's actually going to start going up because you're going to have more mid companies driving hard to take the large cap share. And these are companies that are distant thirds and fourths and fifths in the market to the top two, being
Yeah.
Medtronic and Globus. And so this is going to be one of the most insightful dynamics that I think we're going to see over the next decade. And I'll explain why. One of the big things is that for so long, it had been stagnant. It had been the top five were the top five, and that's always going to be the case. And today, I liken this to shifts like we saw with the Pew Synthes and being picked up by J&J. And I liken this to the shifts that we saw back in the day of Helmetic Osteonics being picked up by Stryker. Did that mean the orthopedic industry was dead? By no means. And we're going through that, albeit it's almost been 30 years since those kind of things happened. But spine has finally gotten to a point to where it's starting to realize there is a lot of opportunity out there. I remember back in the days when Medtronic's spine business was a $4.2 billion business. It's not that now because you had so many quote unquote ankle biters that were taking
Mhm.
share here and there. I think these mid cap companies like Alphatech, okay, companies like Spinal Elements, companies that they get the attention, but not the grandiose attention. They are going to come in and come on strong, even still with VB Spine and with Highbridge, which
Mhm.
was the ZimV spine that
Mhm.
was VB's originally. And so there is so much. Somebody said to me, and they were like, "Oh, we're shifting the chairs on the Titanic." And I'm like, "No, this is way more powerful than this. What you're doing is you're creating a vacuum of opportunity for companies that are looking at things differently. The mid caps look at things differently than the large strategics.
Yeah.
That's a given. And
Yeah.
so by that fact alone, you're going to see more creativity and deals being done, faster deals being done, diversifying the spine market even more. And that leads me to a very strong point of another thing, another micro thing that's going to be macro happening in spine. And that is the continued infiltration of interventional pain into the spine realm. This has been taboo for literally 2 decades.
Yeah.
And that wall is crumbling, and it's crumbling fast. And I'll give you an
Talk
example.
more about that, Chris, because it looks like some of the presentations and from the companies have technologies that may work well in the hands of an ortho neuro traditional spine surgeon and could be something that an interventional pain physician could adapt
100%.
well.
A
So
100%.
talk a little bit
So,
about that, about
yes.
what have you seen and what are the segments that fit into both categories?
So here's the thing. When it comes to interventional pain, okay, this is so much more than receiving an injection or whatever you want to call it. This has so much to do with getting more educated as to where the source of pain really is. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that I need my disc to be built back up by an interbody cage. That's not the deal. It's that I'm in extreme pain because I have got some form of stenosis or whatever the case may be, and or some form of radiculopathy, sciatic issues, whatever. And 9 times out of 10, it all has to do with pain generated by the nerves. And
Mhm.
so there are treatments out there. And this was something that Charles Hamilton pointed out from Piper. And I thought it was brilliant. In the last 4 years of spine, we'll call it acquisitions, 70% of those deals were pain related.
Okay.
And that is a big deal. The shift is not only coming, I think it's arrived. And even as we sit and listen, and there's going to be outliers, there's going to be spine surgeons that are never going to ever work with an interventionalist in any form outside of referral patterns. But physically being hand in hand, arm in arm in the treatment of patients we're going to see a new day in very short order.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the cardiothoracic surgeons and the interventional cardiologists doing different vascular type procedures. Who owns that? Who owns that space? And there's going to be some tension in the long run. There will likely be an agreement, and then all in all, it'll be best, hopefully best for patients.
Absolutely. And that should be the objective. I think that
Yeah.
is the objective that everyone is wanting to be fulfilled. And it's really interesting when you look at the kind of deals that have been done, like Charles said, in the last 4 years, because 70% of those spine related deals were pain and interventional pain related. I can highlight a couple companies here that are heavily focused in that. And one of them is Spinal Simplicity.
Yeah. We had them on the podcast. Shout
Yeah.
out. What technologies have you seen this week that fit nicely into the treatment algorithm of both a spine surgeon and a interventional pain surgeon?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was mentioning, Spinal Simplicity with the technologies they have, not only for basically stability type products as well as SI fusion products, but also because SI fusion is massively performed by interventionalists. I mean,
Right.
there's still a lot of spine doc, right? But that became sort of the initial battleground over the last 15, 20 years. But you're seeing things, especially maybe from a regeneration standpoint, things of that nature. I mean, these are big studies for some companies out there like Dysgenics and Mesoblast and others that have got still some things that have to be done relative to getting to a commercial state, whether it be nucleic cells or mesenchymal stem cells or whatever the case is, and proving it out, right? And so you've got that side of it, but then you have the other side of it that can be a little bit more on the therapeutic side, something that repairs the annulus, like we were talking about with Spinal Simplicity, something that bolsters the nucleus with a minimal amount of discectomy required in the form of a silicone-filled balloon. And that's representative of spinal stabilization technologies. So you're going to see more and more things like this. And think about it. You're not hearing me talk about screws. You're not hearing me talk about interbody cages. Those are not going away by any means, but it's almost to be as preemptive in the patient's pain cycle of low back pain, which is still such a massive issue.
Yeah.
That there are things that can delay a true fusion, things that can potentially prevent a true fusion. Of course, the motion preservation market for spine, it's not going anywhere. Cervical motion preservation, still a big deal, as is ACDF procedures for on the fusion side for the orthosurgeon neurologist to be performing. But I think there's going to become a lot of creative things that'll come to market that in 10 years' time even is going to make the dynamics of this look different. And that's why I say I think those dynamics are already starting to really shift. Case in point, if you have last 4 years, spine type acquisitions, and 70% of those are directly related to addressing the pain.
Right. I'll be interested. It will be interesting to see if some of these early intervention therapies will delay or slow spine deformity cases and degenerative cases, I should say.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I would say that it's going to have more of an impact on the DDD cases more than deformity, because deformity is so absolutely involved, whether it's pediatric or whether it's adult. And I think, sure, there might be some solutions down the road, but I think we're going to have to prove out better ways to approach deformity is going to be in the proving out of how are we going to take care of one spinal segment of the body in a way that is going to create a better outcome from our patient than just being able to say, well, you've got a 70% chance of fusion.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of activity around the space. There's no doubt about it. And it should be very encouraging to investors coming back to that point in that this is not a docile market. It's felt a little bit docile, which is why I'd say in the prior 5 to 8 years that a lot of VCs especially have not taken a great interest in spine. But I would say it's time they turn their head and their ears a little bit closer to what is not only being driven by these startups that are being very innovative and very disruptive to what the standard has been, along with the surgeons that are demanding better things for their patients. And so it's almost like time has come full circle. And I don't think it's by default that the interventional type businesses that the strikers of the world have, they're keeping those,
Right.
but they are spinning out traditional spine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Interesting move.
yeah, so there's a vacuum here that's being created, but it will be filled and the market will continue to grow at the clip that it's been growing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
So,
going to be interesting to see how things play out, but I think the rumors that spine is dead are greatly exaggerated. And I think my prediction is we'll see a few base hits in the next 12 to 18 months, right? Maybe not
yep,
some of these IDE trial. These technologies that require IDE trials are still a little ways down the road, and those could be complete game changers. But I think some of these companies that are developing things that are hybrid between surgeons or spine surgeons and interventional pain, we'll start to see some really interesting returns that will
yep,
free up some liquidity, and some of these other startups who are trying to get into spine.
agreed.
Well,
I was saying it almost 2, 3, 4 years ago. I was like, where is the WD-40 that frees up these cogs, very frozen market? And I think it's coming in from multiple angles, and it's a good thing. And I think investors should take a lot of confidence in that the companies that you might be looking at right now in the realm of spine that have to do with motion preservation, interventional involvement, are where you're going to want to place your bet for the future.
Yeah. Well, innovators are going to innovate. They're going to find a way. So it's always going to be, I'm glad to see programs like the State of the Spine program continue to these think tanks, I should say.
Yep.
Provide a venue for these types of discussions and a place for startups and strategics to gather together and learn from each other and solve the problems that, patients have, which is ongoing spine pain. As a former physical therapist, the struggle is real. So, of certain age, I can also tell you the struggle is real.
Getting out of bed, the struggle is real.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, thanks for taking a bullet for MedTech Jam Session Nation. I think we're now up to high single digits in the MedTech Jam Session Nation. So for going all the way down to Cabo and having to stay at the JW Marriott, we appreciate it. And thank you for your time and for the insight. And we're going to flip this podcast straight away. So
where can people find it?
People can find it wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and all the great platforms you can listen to podcasts. Thanks for joining, and we will see you next time.